Welcome back to RetroLogic. I'm Sam Wagers here with John Cummins and Shannon Eno. Dan couldn't make it this time, but we're carrying on. That's the benefit of having four whole hosts, is we still have a pretty motley crew even when one of us can't make it. So this episode we'll be talking about the Switch 2. Obviously this is a retro show, so we'll be talking a lot about those GameCube games and what these digital key cards mean for game preservation and the future of the past. But anyway, what's new with you guys this week?
Yeah, I think Dan's out there trying to find a way to play Donkey Kong Bonanza. He can't wait.
He needs to play it early. He needs to play it now. He's trying to piece together all the footage and do some kind of game. Yes. I think we all immediately thought of Dan. Is probably our first thought when we saw Donkey Kong in that reveal.
Yeah. I knew it was going to be him. I could hear him in the background behind that wall he was breaking down, and I was like, Dan's going to freak here in a second.
Right. I know for me, I haven't had much time to play games. I've just had a lot going on, and so I can't even really... I haven't really picked anything up. I mean, we probably all need to, if we're going to try to get a Switch 2, we're going to have to save up anyway. At least most of us here. But yeah, so I guess I haven't really even had a chance to play much. I was gone on vacation and been busy at work. So,
did you pick up Xenoblade Chronicles
I did.
X?
Yes, I did pick that up. I haven't had a chance to get very far in it. I even brought it on vacation, and I thought, well, I'll definitely get some time to play that. And I think I played it for like 20 minutes one day, and that was it. I did get to play. You know what? I take it back. I did get to sit down with my nephew, and who is a big Nintendo fan, and we actually ended up playing a lot of NES, not remix. What was the NES Championship edition? and I thought we'd play it one time and you'd be like, all right, that was kind of fun, and then you'd want to play Mario Kart and all that stuff. But no, he was really into it, and we got to play that every time. He really got into those challenges, and
you'll have to buy the Switch 2 upgraded version.
Yeah, right.
To be announced later.
Yeah, he's like, oh, can I, like, is this a game you can download, or do you have to like buy it in the store? And I was like, no, you can download it, whatever, So it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up picking that up. He did like, he's like, oh, I've never played any of these games. He's played a handful of them on the Switch, but on the NSO stuff. But by and large, he hadn't played most of those. He's like, wow, games were a lot harder. And we did do the race where you have to complete all of Super Mario Brothers 1. And so at the end of it, I'm like, dude, I know it rewinds, self-rewinds and everything else, and you really can't fail as long as you keep going. But as far as I'm concerned, you just beat Super Mario Brothers 1 for the first time. So that made him pretty happy. He was pretty excited. He's in sixth grade.
Did he know the warp pipe tricks?
Yeah, he did. He did actually know about the warp pipe, the first one. The second one I had to really help him with, and he almost made it impossible to get up there. He had to really work to get up to that vine. I'm like, yeah. I don't know like what it would do, because it almost let him get past it. And then like he was really I'm so like,
had
you did it.
Had you already finished and then was like going back to help him, or
no? He ended up doing the whole thing. I finished well before he got to the end of 8-4, but I had to help him with the maze, because I forgot that when you're doing it normally, but I think it gives you an idea of where to go in 8-4. But I played it so much as a kid, it's just burned in my memory.
Yeah, you remember,
right? And so I was like, oh, it'll tell you, and it doesn't tell you in that race.
No, it doesn't,
because you can. I think it shows you in where you can go to like the Nintendo Power ish like walkthrough for those, the ultimate challenges ones, right? Like before those, but we didn't look at that. We just were like, yeah, let's just go, let's do it. So yeah, he needed some help getting through that maze and did run out of time. But when you run out of time, it basically starts you back over at the beginning of that level and actually takes away a life. So I was like, oh, I've never seen that happen in the game before.
Yeah, yeah.
But he like I said, he was pretty proud of himself for getting through. And I feel like that's an accomplishment, even if it's in that manner of doing that. I'm like, you still got through every jump, you still got through everything you needed to get through to say you beat the game. So
nice. Yeah, we did quite a bit of Mario Kart and Mario Party this weekend with the kids. Usually the kids don't want to play anything. They got their own stuff going on, but the older kids even wanted to play. So
nice.
And then I think I'm getting close to 20 hours into Xenoblade. Adam is like just breathing that game in, I think, because last time I looked, he was like 40 hours in or longer.
Yeah.
He's already got his skill and he's enjoying it. I'm kind of slowly leveling up through chapter 5, so I'm almost there, but not quite there.
I think I'm in chapter 2.
I didn't realize how little story that X has, like in the early part. Like I'm 20 hours in, and there's barely any story. So
it does pick up, but you have to intentionally trigger the story. It just really pauses all the story stuff until you intentionally pick up a story quest. Yeah. Like it's just not built the same way as the other Chronicles.
Tons of side quests.
Yep.
And then you'll do a main story quest that's like 2 or 3 quest lines long, and that's it. Like then you're right back into side quest again.
That's why I am excited to see the end game and what they added in. Because it sounds like they did add in some stuff. Because I know when I played through it originally on the Wii U, that was my biggest issue. Is like it just kind of ends. Like it doesn't. It's really not. It wasn't really a satisfying ending. Like it was worth playthrough. It's a great game, but it was always just kind of left you hanging. Like okay. All right.
It looks amazing. Like, I'm so surprised that this game is 10 years old. Like, it doesn't look like something. Obviously, it looks better on Switch and it runs a little bit smoother. But for the most part, when I played it on the Wii U, it's pretty similar. Like, it was just that good looking of a game back then.
It's Monolith Soft. They really, next to Nintendo themselves, they probably are some of the best at getting.
At those types of games, I think they're better than Nintendo because Nintendo leans on them for open world games.
That's
quite
true.
A bit.
Yep. I wish some other companies maybe leaned on them a little bit.
Yeah, they need to get Monolith involved with some Pokemon games, is what it sounds like.
Possibly. For my part, I'm kind of between like major games. Like I was more or less done with Monster Hunter, but it did have an update this weekend, so they added 2 new monsters. Well, 1 new monster. The other is the high rank version of the final boss, which you could only fight in low rank at the game's launch. So I had some fun fighting him a couple times. Felt like the first time the game actually like challenged me, which was a welcome change because I've kind of felt like the game was a little too easy on people. It's not what Monster Hunter is supposed to be for those of us who suffered through the early games, I guess. Fought him a couple times, made a sword out of him. Probably not going to bother making the armor. That was pretty fun. But RetroLogic is not just a podcast. It is a whole community of retro gamers. So if you want to hop into our friendly and free Discord, you can talk about what you've been playing and enter all of our contests. We have Free Stuff Friday every Friday. And just, chat to us about whatever, all kinds of weird, you can see the weird Donkey Kong memes I've been making. Because Donkey Kong is definitely like the most memeable Nintendo character now. I think.
I mean, you've been doing a lot for just apes in general right now too.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I have declared it to be
Ape Escape is also.
Roll.
Yep.
It is Ape Escape Roll. It is like the mirror universe twin of Plocktober, 6 months apart. I'll be honest, that was an April Fool's Day joke, but the funniest part is continuing it and taking it entirely seriously. So those are the best jokes, the ones we
you got Dan on board, so that's all that matters.
Yep. So if you want to talk about Ape Escape, we welcome that, or just celebrate Ape Escape with us. We've also got our whole family of retro podcasts. RetroGroove's most recent episode was on Neil Young. FilmLogic had a episode on a forgotten Spielberg project, Reich Under Fire from 1992. They've definitely dug up some interesting stuff over the last several months. And Retro Rewind is starting a new game, right, John?
Yep, we are going to play Solar Jetman. I should have a contest out. I was supposed to have one out yesterday, but it's probably just going to be a high score attack because this is more like an arcade game. So that's more than likely what it'll end up being. And then hopefully we can get On Topic Retro back going again with the Zelda series.
Right.
Hopefully here shortly.
We've got to do the Kurukurin episode too.
We also, yes, I do need to put together a crew for that. I know you're...
I will make myself available for that.
Yeah, I need to get you and Micah both in there, the two speedrunners here, to talk a little bit more about it.
I could not beat his time, but...
you guys went back and forth
it was
for a while there.
I wanted to make it interesting, you know? I did.
I was wondering if somebody was about ready to set a record for that, like a world record for that.
We got to the point where you actually had to intentionally hit the walls to take shortcuts that otherwise aren't possible, even though that gives you like a 3-second penalty.
Right.
I think he was close. I think he was maybe like a second and a half away from the record. I'm not 100% sure. He wasn't even sure how you could get the record. How you could go a second and a half
I'm not even
faster.
sure how he got his time, so...
Yeah. It'd be interesting. I'd like to see... I wish he should have took a clip of it.
Right.
I mean, you could do... the time...
wasn't it under 30 seconds?
Yeah, it was under 30 seconds. I was going to say, you could do the switch record to capture it, but...
I wouldn't
just tell him we're going to need him to resubmit. Do it again.
Yeah, I don't believe you. Let's do this over.
Oh, he is a competitor. He does not.
He is, yeah.
Once he gets involved in a
couple times a year, he shows up and cleans up house.
He just cannot. He can't back down once he gets going on something, which is fun to watch. It is a great game. I wish I had the time to put more time into it.
Yep. And for my part, I've been continuing the Battle Network 6 streams. So I am in the post game of the last game now. It has quite a bit of in-game content, so that'll probably take a little while, but I will put the offer out there that I would love to have somebody else who's a fan of the series come on the show and talk about it with me so that these guys don't have to suffer through me getting into the weeds and explaining how sensor slide works.
There's got to be some other Battle Network gurus out there.
So if you're listening and you would like to do that, then hop on the Discord and get in touch.
Marty's not Shannon, a Battle Network guy, is he?
Who?
Marty?
I know he was playing. I know he did not play it when it was out. Like when it was current. I think he picked up the collection. I'm not sure he made it past the first game.
Most people don't.
Yeah, that is the thing. It probably is the worst one to start with.
I think it kind of kills Mega Man fans to go back and play those games.
A little bit. Shannon, anything new with Star Wars Dads?
Yeah, we just recorded an episode last night as we're recording this episode, and just catching up on all the news before Star Wars Celebration Japan in a short little while, week or so. from now, and just trying to get everything cleared up before then, because news between that and Andor Season 2 coming out, we're going to have a whole lot to talk about in the next few episodes. So that should be hitting feeds soon.
Awesome. Well, it is time to play our favorite game. The Price is Retro.
Let's do it.
Are you guys ready?
Let's do it.
If this is your first time playing along at home, here is how we play. I'm going to list off 4 or 5 games. Everyone has to guess how much the lot is worth in total. Whoever guesses closest to the actual value wins the round. Everyone has a list, and everyone guesses on each other's list. At the end, the player that wins the most rounds wins the episode. But watch out for our trio of automated competitors: the ghost, the robot, and the dinosaur, who each make their own guesses according to the rules as follows. The ghost always guesses 300. The robot guesses the average of the 3 hosts' guests, or, well, it's 3 in this case anyway. And the dinosaur guesses the MSRP of the games at launch, or average on that system in any case. So with that said, Shannon, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Let's do it. So my list is 5 games based on movies that actually are not bad, and in some cases are better than expected. Because we all know about all those video game tie-ins, or movie video game tie-ins that we used to see all the time, and most of the time were not very good. But sometimes some squeak through that are actually, hey, not bad.
You better have Batman Returns on your list.
Well, how about Batman the video game?
Well, that works too.
Also
all right.
acceptable.
We'll start with Batman the video game for the NES, complete in box. These are all going to be complete in box just to keep it a little more fun.
Ooh.
Second one is Ghostbusters the video game for the Wii, complete in box. The third one is Lord of the Rings, Return of the King for GameCube, complete in box. The fourth one is Peter Jackson's King Kong for the Xbox 360, complete. And the last one is Toy Story 2 for the N64, complete in box.
Okay, I will guess first, and my guess will be $370.
I'm going to go $275.
All right, we're going to have to definitely check with the dinosaur. I think he's the only one who might be close. Otherwise it'll be John's. The actual price is $219.69.
I was thinking.
Sam guessing high for the
50.
for this.
Complete in box, I feel like I have to overestimate.
Yeah,
I've been burned so many times by lowballing it.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think
Especially
Sam
on
made
cartridge
me
games.
second guess my. I was thinking 250 in my head, and the dyno is at 255.
wow.
So I was like, I think it's going to be more. So I went up a little bit, and then I should have stayed put. So I think the dyno is going to take that one at 255. Since we were both high, that puts the robot out.
Yeah.
And the ghost is at 300.
300.
So.
So yep. So breakdown: Batman the video game complete for NES, $82.10. Probably no big surprise there. Ghostbusters the video game for Wii complete is $8.60.
Oh, wow.
Probably not a whole lot of surprise there, but you never know sometimes.
I don't know. I thought I'd heard that one had spiked at some point, but
And it could be. It was definitely a little lower than I expected when I looked it up.
I was thinking more like 30, but
Yeah. Lord of the Rings, Return of the King for GameCube complete, 2633.
that's about where I had that one.
Yep. This one surprised me a little bit. Peter Jackson's King Kong. I did the Xbox 360 version. Complete was 4804. Usually you don't. A lot of Xbox games are not that, especially for a movie tie-in. You wouldn't necessarily think that, but. And Toy Story 2 for the N64 complete, 5462.
It's not bad.
All right, who's up next?
I will go next. I'm just going left to right on the order here. But my list is a list of games which we were told will be coming to NSO GameCube.
Oh, nice.
I'm probably not the only one who looked these up recently. But
I mean, I didn't, but I almost did the same kind of list, and then I decided against it.
Is the question. These are all going to be complete in box. As
How many you got?
4.
Okay, I'm just putting it in for the dyno now. Because I'm usually trying to put these in as I'm thinking about my guesses, too, so it's nice to get them all in at once.
Nice when they're all the same system, too.
Yes, that too.
All right, first up, we have Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, followed by Chibi Robo, Pokemon Colosseum, and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. Once again, all for the
I wish I had looked these up.
Am I going first?
Yes, you're going first.
I'm going to say $1,200 bucks.
Is next. $1,200.
Whoa. Okay.
Mr. High Roller.
Yeah. I mean, I was going around 600, so I will just go with the 600 then.
1,200, 600. Ooh. That's bad news.
Is it right in between?
The total is $820.07, so I believe the robot takes that.
Oh, come on.
Well, you said 812.
It's that stupid Pokemon game. I know it's valuable, but I've never looked it up.
I thought it was more valuable than that. That's the one that I was thinking.
So,
I mean,
Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, $205.
I do know that. I know that one because I own that.
Chibi Robo, $209.
Yeah, I knew that one was.
Pokemon Colosseum, $177.47. And Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, $226.97. So all pretty much around $200.
So
pretty
I should have
evenly
just
split between them.
Should have figured that one. I knew Chibi Robo was also expensive, but I guess I hadn't realized they had gotten quite that high.
So we're out
some
now.
GameCube games have come down after that, millennials.
I was going to say, yeah, I think
spike. But
at one point in time, I think my guess was pretty close.
That just didn't, stuff like, I remember like Thousand Year Door was, like $130 a while back, but I think it's back down to like 45 or 50.
These games have come down though, because I remember a time when Chibi Robo was 300 and so was Fire Emblem.
That's possible.
And Pokemon
I didn't look too close on
Pokemon Gale XD
history.
was Gale of Darkness XD was has been going up. It's the opposite.
And
I remember when you could get it for like $90 and now it's like over 200.
It really is quite crazy.
Some of these price chartings, Chibi Robo has been fairly static since like 20. I mean, its peak was 260.
Yeah, I mean that's.
I mean, I knew it was expensive. I guess I just didn't.
I remember.
So I went low on that one.
I remember when I was looking. When I was first getting back in to collecting GameCube, and I bought a GameCube. I didn't even have a GameCube anymore. I had sold mine, and I just went on eBay and I was like, "What's the cheapest GameCube?" And it was a Platinum Pokemon edition GameCube, and I bought it, and I was like, well, I should probably try to get the game, the Pokemon game that goes with it. And at the time, it was like $90, and I was like, man, that's a lot. I don't really know if I'll even play this. Like, I'll just skip out. And then so I've kept an eye on it, and ever since then, it's only gone up. So
that's me with Path of Radiance.
Yep, I was like, I probably should have bought this when it was $90 somewhere.
This you haven't had a chance to play Path of Radiance, have you, Sam?
Nope.
I think I hope because that's the one I'm excited for you to play, because that's the one that got me into Fire Emblem. And I'll be honest, some of the newer ones I've had a hard time because I miss the days of like Path of Radiance, Fire Emblem.
So
like, I mean, it was
Dawn, though, didn't you?
Yeah, that's the funny thing. I started with Radiant Dawn.
That's
which
what I
is
was
a direct
thinking.
Sequel,
which is pretty similar. Like, if you like that one, you're gonna be just fine on. But it's just, I don't know. I'm really looking forward to having like my choices really matter, and like spending the time actually thinking about every move. Like, because I maybe it's just me, but I've gotten a little lazy in more modern Fire Emblem, because I'm like, it doesn't really matter. So, and I know you can put it in hard mode. I know you can put it on permanent death. I know all that, but like, man, I just remember resetting that GameCube like 6 times trying to get through some of these battles, and I kind of missed that, where it wasn't a choice. You're just going to, like, this is going to be, you're going to have to figure this out, or you're going to lose a character. And I'd be like, I can't lose that character, reset. So, yeah.
Yeah, I honestly think what I would prefer in Fire Emblem, I mean, you can always do this as a self-imposed challenge, but I would prefer an Iron Man mode that says you don't have to reset.
That you don't, right. It auto-saves this, Yep. That would be kind of cool, I suppose. But, yeah,
because
I'm excited
for
the
really old games, they were designed to give you replacement units.
They were,
absolutely. Like, there were so many redundant units because they expected you to lose some.
Right.
Yeah, and you didn't have a choice to not lose them.
Yeah.
Like you do in the newer games.
But there was just times where you're like, no, that one character that's too important to me, and I just can't. But there were times where I'm like, I can't play that battle again. Like, I just got to move forward and accept that.
Yeah, you don't know another way to do it to where you can keep them.
Right. You're just like, I just don't know how to do that. And but man, I'm really looking forward to going back in and playing that, and then hearing or kind of going around and see what you think, Sam.
So my list is an unusual list for me because it has 6 games on it. I don't usually do 6 games, but it's that way because I chose to do a list of cross-generational games between Nintendo systems, which is not very common. The first, and these are going to be a mix of complete in box and loose because some of them are discs and some of them are not. The first game on my list is Zelda Twilight Princess for the Wii, complete in box. The second game is its counterpart on the GameCube, also complete in box. The third game is Tony Hawk American Skateland on the Game Boy Advance, loose. The fourth game is Tony Hawk American Skateland for the Nintendo DS, complete in box. The fifth game is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters for the Super Nintendo, loose. And then the sixth game is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters for the NES, loose.
Okay. Ooh, I'm going to need a minute to add these up.
Oh, you're fine. I went ahead and while we were discussing
it. You are first guess, though.
Input the robot.
Wait a minute. How did I end up having to guess first twice?
I guessed first.
I thought I did on the first one I did. Maybe not.
The first
no,
one
I guess not. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
He was the first.
No, because I was the first one to go. You're right. I was thinking I went first the last one, too. I did not. I remember because yours was like twice as high as what I'd come up with.
Yeah, I went first.
Yeah. All right. I got 450.
Okay.
I got 285.
Wait, was that? Sorry.
285.
$285. Okay. So the total of my lot is $411.52. So I believe Shannon is going to win this round.
We had to win at least one round against
the. Beat us though. 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
At least we won one round.
Is it all tournament fighters?
A lot of it is, yeah.
The NES one.
Yep.
Yeah.
I knew that one was high.
There's almost no value in 4 of the games, and then 2 of the games are really picking up all the slack on this.
Yeah.
So Zelda Twilight Princess for the Wii complete in box is $19.94.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Zelda Twilight Princess for the GameCube complete in box is $152.25.
Oh, no, I was thinking like half that.
Yeah, I know it's gone up.
I knew it would be more.
Again.
It's always, well, in these cases, it's always the old system one that gets expensive.
Right, because everybody else moves on. And
unless we're talking about Tony Hawk American Skateland, which does the opposite, but it's because nobody cares. This is a Game Boy Advance game loose for $9.96. But if you buy the Nintendo DS version of it, complete in box is $15.87.
Okay.
And then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters for Super Nintendo loose, $20.47. And its counterpart on the NES loose is $193.03.
Yeah, I was almost right on with those. I actually went a little high on the Tony Hawk stuff. I mean, a little. So, but I was pretty on with everything else, so not bad.
It's kind of crazy, there's really not a whole lot of times where Nintendo was like, well, we're going to release games on both platforms.
I feel like it's been a little more modern that they've... from like GameCube on.
Unless you count the Master Quest, but that's
I was trying to get games that
later.
Yeah, specifically came out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though Wii and GameCube Twilight Princess, I think there was like some days between, right? I don't think they were day and date. Same.
I think you might be right. I think the GameCube actually came out later.
I think so. And then
Breath of the Wild. It's just Zelda, really.
in American Skateland.
Well, until Metroid now. I mean, sort of. I still am unsure whether or not Metroid 4 is really a different version of the game or just a upgrade to the game.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of what cross-generational games are, is they're supposed to be as close to the same game as they can be on 2 different platforms, even though Tournament Fighters took a major hit on
Link
NES.
being right-handed, that's pretty different, man.
Yeah. I also thought it's
flip to the entire
game. Metroid, you could definitely tell there's a graphical difference between the Switch version and the
Switch you can also tell there's a graphical difference between running a game on low settings and ultra settings on a PC.
Yeah. Well, you'll see that on Switch 2 as well if you're playing the performance mode versus the quality mode. It's going to be quite the hefty difference.
Well, that is Price is Retro for the week. So we
congratulations, Rampage.
The Rampage
I tried.
video.
I tried.
We did try. I think they might be tied again with Shannon for most wins.
Yeah, Shannon let him come back.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, Dan was cleaning up. He won the last 3 in a row.
Yeah.
But without Dan, we were succumbed to the Rampage.
Just not doing it. Do we have a trivia card?
We do. Actually, it looks like we picked an easy one this time. All right. Introduced in Mario Kart 64 and a staple of the series since, which controversial, I don't really know if it's that controversial, but anyway, projectile targets the race leader.
The blue shell.
The blue shell.
Yep.
Very on topic.
Yeah.
What does it mean by controversial? I guess people
I know. I'm like, I guess by the person in the lead all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I have always, when people say they can't get into the Super Mario Kart, the original, I always point out that there are no blue shells in Super Mario Kart.
There's also
Right.
major rubber banding on the original Mario Kart.
But there are no blue shells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Which American toy manufacturer released the Intellivision home console in 1979? Mattel is correct. Sometimes you pick them out and they're quite simple. Sometimes you pick them out and you're like, I've never heard of this before.
Same people that made the Power Glove.
That's right.
Okay, well, we will be back with our show topic after a short break. See you then. Okay, welcome back, and we are talking about the Switch 2, specifically what it means for game preservation, both in that we're getting some GameCube games, but also not every game card is created equal, it seems.
Not any longer.
So, yeah, I've got a couple notes here. One thing I do want to just point out, in considering all this, is that and we've known since before the recent Direct that the Switch 2 is backwards compatible, which is a really good victory for preservation in the short term. It means everything on the Switch 1 will still, especially like the digital games on the Switch 1, will presumably be for sale digitally as long as all the Switch 2 games are. Now, individual games might get delisted, but the majority of them will probably stay up. There's another 15 years.
There's a short list out there with like some compatibility issues, but it's pretty minor.
And it sounds like Nintendo's working with those companies to do that.
And that's kind of expected. Like there's always stuff that falls through the cracks.
Well, especially since it sounds like the Switch 1 games will actually be emulated on Switch 2 rather than be running strictly from a hardware.
I did read something about that, which kind of makes sense. I'd have to imagine. I mean, the architecture is probably different between the two systems,
and that does raise some concerns as to whether they will, perform the same. Right? Emulation can often introduce some quirks that it's just not the original intended experience.
But I think to a vast majority, And I think to a vast majority of people may not even notice a difference.
Probably not. I mean, all in all, it's a good thing. It's a good way to keep customers who have heavily invested in the original Switch on board with the new system. You don't want to alienate, everyone that's been collecting those games for the last, especially with how long the Switch lasted. Even the average person's got to have a decent sized library, even if it's digital, of games, especially when you compare it to something like the Wii U that we had for a very short period of time.
Right.
People were clamoring for crossover to let games come over to the Switch at that point, saying that it was a bad deal because that kind of cut off at that point. But to say you have 8 years of library that are, it's kind of like whenever the 3DS came out and we didn't skip a beat. You could just throw a DS game in the 3DS and still play it. Mm-hmm. Like that system has a huge library now because of both of them together.
And especially from the retro availability perspective. And a lot of it is maybe digital only, though a lot of those collections made their way onto physical cartridges through limited run or whatever, stuff like the Castlevania collection, the Mega Man Legacy collections. But I mean, one of the biggest things I ever did on the blog was kind of a deep dive into just how many retro games are available on the Switch. And it's outdated now. That was before N64 stuff was added. But it actually blows the old Virtual Console out of the water, which is something I don't think a lot of people realized due to just how you have to look a bunch of different places for them now.
Yeah, with the Arcade Archives games.
And all that, is getting carried forward to Switch 2. We are not going back to, here's 8 NES games for you at launch, and we'll drip feed you.
Here's your Urban Champion. You will like it.
Yeah, here you'll get Super Mario for the 20th time.
Right.
So great for availability, accessibility. That is something I try to keep in mind too. Like, accessibility is different from preservation. There are things that accomplish both, but it is technically a different problem of how do we make sure that old games still exist versus how do we make sure people can actually play them in a way that isn't super expensive or super cumbersome. And I think digital helps accessibility. It doesn't necessarily help the preservation as much. But that's kind of the big thing that everybody's talking about is these game key cards. Nintendo has confirmed that some games that you buy at retail stores will not be traditional game cartridges, or they will not have all the data of the game on the card.
So far, it's just. I was just going to say, it's been just third parties, correct?
Yes.
That we know about.
There actually aren't too many confirmed.
Right.
I have a feeling that it's going to be the norm for third parties.
I mean,
just because of how cheap it will be compared to the alternative. I mean,
it's what we're already getting on Xbox and PlayStation. When you buy those discs, that's what you're really getting. It's just unlocking discs.
Yep. And then you download for the 80%. That's heck. Most of it might be 100% now. I'm not really sure, but so this kind of brings me to a point where I think I'm going to try to only purchase games that are all on the game card to some capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there are day one patches for most games, but I think I'm going to try to limit my collecting of Switch 2 to game cards that do hold the whole game.
I mean, one of the examples that's coming out is Bravely Default Flying Fairy. I have the game on the 3DS, but I kind of want to play it again on the Switch too. And if I do, I will probably just buy the digital version and be okay with just having the original on, physical.
With maybe the exception of a heavy sale on the key card.
Right.
Two things that stand out to me on these that sometimes don't get mentioned. This actually is, I think, an improvement. I think we can say improvement. It's not ideal compared to just getting the actual game on the card. But compared to those boxes that just have a code for you to enter on the eShop.
I agreed.
One, this is labeled on the box. There is like a standard label for what you're buying. If you're somebody who cares about this, it will be pretty easy to tell what you're getting. And it should be on the box art that's on your pre-order. When you pre-order on Best Buy's website or whoever. They're also not tied to a specific account.
Correct.
So that indicates you actually should be able to transfer. You should be able to loan this to someone else or trade this with someone else. And they'll be able to, as long as the eShop is still available, they will be able to insert that game card in their Switch and re-download it to a new system. Now, I don't know if there's something you have to do prior to that to sort of, the way they've
authentication method or something.
Well, a way for you to sort of relinquish your copy, because obviously you couldn't keep yours downloaded. But
similar
I think that's part of the
game.
point. The point is you download the game to your system, but you still need the key in order to play it. Just like CD-ROMs, if you played PC games back in like the 90s and 2000s, you put the CD-ROM in and then you ran the install. At the end of the install, all the data was on your hard drive. The CD was not actually doing anything for you other than authenticating your copy of the game as an anti-piracy measure. This is pretty much that.
I think, like if you go to the library and you get a PS5 game, a lot of libraries rent out, you can borrow games and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like, if I go get Astrobot, for instance. I picked that game up from the library a few months back to try it out and bring it home, and I have to download the game basically to the hard drive once I put that game in. I don't need to relinquish anything when I bring it back to the library. It just doesn't play on my system anymore.
Right.
So it's just data that sits there unless I delete the data.
I think it's going to work just like the... I think it's going to be a similar technology to the digital game card.
Yeah. Yep. I think that'll be exactly that. And so, like if I were to buy one of these and then I give it to John and John plays it for a while and then gives it to Sam and he plays it for a while, whoever has it can play it because they have the key. But until I get that key back, I can't play it again.
I think it'll just show up on your carousel or whatever, and it'll just have the empty game card logo.
It'll
just like a normal game.
Yep. As far as the system's concerned, I don't think you really notice much difference.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest disadvantage is what happens when the Switch 2 eShop is taken down.
Right.
Which Nintendo, if they have a plan for it, is not telling us because they don't want to make a promise they won't be able to keep because of unforeseen things.
Yep.
And I mean, if anyone's curious, I'm sure we all are, to how many of these third parties will use these cards, just look at how many third parties bought the very cheapest game card they could and made you download the additional. That every one of those.
This is just a 0 gig version.
Yeah, they're going to use this method available of game card if given the option, which was all of the major third party, except for CD Projekt Red, which we do have on the list here. That you put that it's surprising that Cyberpunk is all on the game card, but if you remember, CD Projekt Red made a really big deal to get all of The Witcher 3 on the game card.
Yeah.
Like that was their mission, and they did. They bought the biggest game card you could get, and they got it all on there. So I wasn't really that surprised whenever they came out and said, hey, we're putting the whole thing on there free to play, no exceptions. So,
well, and a lot of this does give me the impression that this is something Nintendo is doing for third parties.
Yes.
Because it's been noticed a long time. Nintendo's games are pretty small data-wise compared to the AAA industry standard. Even the stuff Switch to, the largest is Mario Kart World. And that's at like 21 point something gigs.
I think that, well, I was going to say, I think that, I mean, Nintendo's always been really good about somehow wizarding that magic up. But, if they really are dependent or, working on this AI upscaling and still can deliver 4K, even if it's not native, right? But like upscaling, like on the fly, and it seems to work based on the footage we've seen pretty well, that will save a ton of space, even for third parties, if they do not have to include all those 4K textures, like in that file. I mean, that's majority of why games are so big is these huge texture packs.
Yeah, but it makes me wonder.
It's pretty common with PC games for 4K textures to actually be free DLC because they're just not included by default. Because if you can't run the game in 4K, they're just taking up space.
Why throw half of the game again, twice as big just because of 4K textures? And so
I think it's going to come down to how many third parties are using. We'll have to see where Switch 2 lies as far as is it able to be a one-to-one crossover with the game that they've already developed for other platforms? Like, can they just port it over? Like, is it going to be as seamless as like an Xbox game going to PlayStation and, should be able to run it fairly simple? Or are we still going to be getting a Switch 2 version of games that, they had to co-develop alongside the other one? Because if that's the case, then I would say that, your idea would probably work. They would be able to use Nintendo's artificial upscaling of 4K in a way. But if they're developing, another, if they're able to just take their base game that they've already put 4K textures into and put it on a Nintendo Switch cart, then they're probably going to do that because it's the easiest way to do it.
Right.
And upscaling does also ease the GPU burden as well.
Oh, yeah.
By and large. So they may be doing it for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
So far, the confirmed games are Bravely Default Flying Fairy, Street Fighter 6, and probably Elden Ring.
I think it is already. I think it was already confirmed, wasn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't see like the actual box with the actual like mark on the label, but I think Play Asia's listing for it that's up calls it a game key card.
And that might be region based as well, because Play Asia is going to give you a different region. Sometimes, I mean, you can still buy U.S. Region games from Play Asia. But I don't know what that link is, if that link was for an Asian version or Japanese or...
And again, I think this really just comes down to the game size and the cost of, actually getting that card. And a lot of this, too, Nintendo probably isn't going to do it themselves because they're charging other people for their proprietary storage cartridges.
Yeah.
It may not be a huge markup, but I'm sure that the extra overhead is less for them than it is for anyone else.
100%.
And, a game like Street Fighter 6, I have the PC version. I can look at it right here. 87.52 gigs. And they're still making DLC for it. So, I mean, that's...
But again, those have 4K textures, and those are full of 4K textures, though, too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if they are able to, but yeah, still,
it'll be interesting to see, kind of which way people go. I mean, like you said, obviously Nintendo's probably going to be on a game card every time, mainly because they don't even have to use the largest game card most of the time. They're using the smaller game cards.
And even then, it's a whole other discussion probably, but a lot of people are surprised at Mario Kart World being $80 for the physical game card. It is their largest game, and I wonder if that's the reason why.
Is it been, because there's been so much misinformation and confusion, really not even, it's because we just don't have all the facts yet, but is it confirmed that is just the physical version and the digital will be... I thought that it was for the digital will also be...
The bundle that comes with the digital is $50 more than just the console.
Right.
Yeah, but I think if you buy it digitally, if you didn't get the console with it, it's going to be $80.
It's going to be $80.
It may be. If this is really a thing, though, and if the card's the reason, I think they'd have every reason to actually make digital games less. Now, I think one way they might do that is the voucher program that they did for the Switch.
Could be.
Where you bought 2 vouchers for $100.
I mean, even if they raised it to 110, 120, but...
And they could. I wonder if they could keep that price, $100 for 2 vouchers. And, they were willing to let people get Tears of the Kingdom with that, which was a $70 game.
Yeah.
And they're willing to let people get Mario Kart World for $50 essentially through the bundle.
Right.
If $80 games are very rare, I could see them doing that. Especially because they know they've got you for 2 games, and they know you're an NSO member. They are making money off of you.
Yeah.
You're the whale at this point for that.
So I could see that, and it really comes down to what I've been saying for a while, which is that I think digital games really are appealing because they save money. It's just that savings was never passed on to the consumer before. Exactly. The unfortunate thing is that now it's only passed on to the consumer in avoiding the price increase for everything else.
Well, and I think that might end up still be a positive, because I mean we're kind of all got to be a little bit crazy to think the games will stay at $60 for the rest of time. They've got to go up eventually.
Yeah,
pretty much everything else has gone up around us. And
I think people's biggest thing was that is probably the game that was least likely for people to predict would be that game to jump, right? Like that Mario Kart. And maybe we shouldn't be surprised because Mario Kart, I mean, I can't imagine a game making more money, like pure profit for Nintendo than Mario Kart 8 at this point. It really
depends how like much you trust Nintendo. Like if you're very cynical and it's just a cash grab, but like the flip side of it is like, wow, they really think it's worth $80. Like this has got to be some Mario Kart game.
Well, and I think that they're more likely going to be updating this game quite a bit.
That's the thing I've been wondering too, is if the price is also like, and maybe we'll find out more because we are supposed to get a direct here soon that's just about Mario Kart. And I think, I wonder if they were to say, hey, listen,
stuff left to show.
There's and we're going to be updating. You're going to be getting monthly updates for the life of this game and events and characters and whatever, maybe then, you're just, if you jump in now, hey, you're going, especially if you get the bundle, you're going to be getting the most benefit, the most.
Well, and that's the other point of comparison is for a long time, the rest of the industry was doing, and Nintendo's done DLC too, but the rest of the industry, it was standard practice to launch a $60 game with a $20 season pass day one for content that's on the disc.
Yep.
Well, and how many, we're scoffing at an $80 Mario Kart, but how many game companies are making 4 or 5 different tiers of the same game with additional things added to it for, you know, so some of them are like $300. Like you can get a version of Assassin's Creed Shadows that's $300 that comes
I think the difference in the argument, if you're taking devil's advocate, is that that's all by choice, right? We don't have a choice. If you want Mario Kart, if you're not able to get the bundle, your only option, or if you are like, I have to have it physically, you don't have another choice. Like there isn't levels of choice. I mean, in other cases, it's like, okay, I can go buy this game, and it sucks that there's DLC that is in this data, but I can't access it because I'm not willing to pay $20. I mean, at least you still had that choice, right? And in this case, you don't have that choice. I can't buy a $60 version of Mario Kart 8 physical, or Mario Kart World for $60 and just say whatever your choices are for updating, or I'll just take the base game. Thanks. We won't have that option here.
Well, it's kind of the extreme version of like all the free to play games, and you can play those with the attitude of, hey, it's really free.
Right.
Other people pay for
spend
it
as much
because
as
other people buy the skins and the battle pass. I don't.
And so in this case, it's all or nothing. And I think the other part of it is too that, when you start talking this kind of price, you do end up inevitably pricing some people out. You just do. Yeah. And that's unfortunate, but for some people, it's like, no, I'm sorry. This is not, I can't do $80 for a video game. And I understand that, and I get it. And so
I think
I feel for that too.
Part of this, though, is repercussion from, like I said, however many generations of systems that have stayed at the same price. And I think we've seen the devastation of game companies that have priced themselves out of jobs because their games don't make enough money.
Right.
So it's tricky too, because when you talk about games, as I understand it, the economics of it, it's not just, I don't know how much of the overall overhead for getting a game to somebody is copying it to making the proprietary storage media, copying it to that media, shipping it to a retailer, paying the retailer. Most of the overhead, as I understand it, is development.
Yeah. Yes. I would imagine.
Once you have recouped your costs for development, it's pure profit, right? But you have to get there. So you have to rely on projections for sales to budget correctly. And I can understand why a business that is in order to remain in existence, needs to keep, well above that margin, is going to look for every way they can to minimize that or get as much as they can. The flip side of that is, in order to get as much as they can, they have to sell at a appealing price so that they get more sales, right? Because most of the sales, if you aren't considering development, are a profit, very profitable.
Yeah.
But how do you sell the most? Do you sell the most at 60, 70, 80? What is that break point? They're kind of in uncharted territory selling a game with an $80 base price.
Right.
But it's not that different from a lot of things before. And I mean, we play a game every week based on the fact that prices change, right?
Exactly.
If you really take that perspective, it's like, okay, like generally game prices will go down first. Some games become rare and sought after. They come up later. And I think all of us have probably paid a pretty penny for a game we just really wanted. There was probably more than it was at launch. So, I mean, it's just, if you have to wait, you have to wait. Like that's...
Yeah, it'll eventually, if it's out of your price range now, somebody will sell a used
I do
copy
think the
at a
pricing
discount.
does set expectations. I think that's fair. That's why I have high expectations for Mario Kart World now. If it doesn't meet those, I will be kind of angry that they're just charging more. It goes the other way too. Like one of the reasons I was so impressed with a game like Gunman Clive on the 3DS was because it was a $2 game. It was like really good for a $2 game. If they charged $20 for Gunman Clive, I would have been like, this game's lame.
I think we might also be seeing just the cost of development on this game. Who knows how long this game's actually even been in development for? We haven't got a new Mario Kart in over 10 years. So, I mean, they
tricky part too
Switch
is like
and added tracks, but
there's a bigger picture as well. Like Nintendo knows not every game makes the same amount of money. Not every game costs as much to make. And there's also the fact that just because a game costs a lot to make doesn't mean that you should charge more for it, because you might do better to just cut those losses by selling as many copies as you can and getting started on the next project.
Right.
I guess there's an interview
That's
out there with Doug
is.
Bowser about doing basically they want to kind of doing an analysis of their games with development costs and all these things, and they want to do a variable price on Switch games going forward.
And that makes sense. It should go both ways.
Yes.
And I think it's actually a good thing if we realize not all games are equal value.
Correct.
You don't have to force every AAA game into the $60 mold. And I look at a game like Dragon Drive, and I think it could be a lot of fun. I don't think it's a $60 game based on what I've seen. Maybe there's like all this other content and stuff. And maybe like there could be more content. And they have to make that decision in development. Like, hey, do we stop here? Do we try to make this, really worth people's full price? And Nintendo's done this before. I've pointed out stuff like Captain Toad came out at like a $40 price point.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree with you, Sam, on that. Like, I think from personal standpoint, I can stomach an $80 game here and there if it means that we get more of those. Like Captain Toad is the perfect example, right? Like, I would love more of those smaller little experiences at a better price, because then it kind of evens out, right? And then I'm still averaging $60, across games, even though I've got 180, 140. And I think that's important. And I think that's where they got some people upset in the Switch 1 era, because they did do that. They've done that before in the past, but really, by and large, a vast majority of stuff they put out on the Switch 1 was just flat out $60. And it didn't matter how long the experience was, what the experience was. Listen, you're going to pay the same amount for a WarioWare that you're going to pay for a Zelda Breath of the Wild, right? And And so I think, though, if they are variable, as long as they're willing to go down on some of these other experiences and be okay with creating some of those, because sometimes some of those smaller ones are just as much fun. And
exactly. And
and
it's just being realistic about it.
Yep.
Well, that's maybe this variable price will go
stuff
both
like,
ways.
I mean, like, I think every single one of the Mario sports games that came to Switch, people complained there wasn't enough content. And they keep adding these like story mode, adventure mode. I think really what they should do is just pare it down to, multiplayer, arcade, championship type mode, and just make it like a $40 game.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that would set people's expectations to where they're satisfied with what they're getting, instead of trying to find a way to make a single player experience out of it.
Trying to make the game worth $60 is what they're doing in the long run.
Well, and I think that's what it is. I think that's why you get that stuff, and even then, it seems like it's not enough.
Yeah, it's like shoehorned.
I think people would just be happier if you just set a more realistic goal for those games.
Oh, and I mean, kind of, you brought it up at the beginning of the discussion here. There was a point in time where we had variable pricing on games, like Super Nintendo and 64 era. That it wasn't uncommon to have a $90 game. Like, I think Chrono Trigger was a $90 game. Like
Final Fantasy 3, I think, was up there.
3, yeah. We had
a lot of the RPGs.
Games that,
that's why they never took off until the PlayStation.
Yeah,
right. Because that's when they started getting
everything else.
Yeah. Yep.
So I mean, yeah, we're gonna probably experience a little bit of a price hike on certain games, but again, maybe it makes it to where if they're seeing the profit that they need on the higher end games, maybe they will throw us some, like $40 games, like what you guys are talking about.
Well, and it is a little bit different because you are still just paying for a storage device, right? So I think there's more hope that that'll just come down over time.
Yeah.
Compared to true game cartridges, which are part of the hardware which runs the game.
Right.
It's why they're so hard to emulate.
Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, shoot, what was $90 in the 90s? We were paying a lot of money for a game.
And the crazy thing is the other counterpoint is back then we had game rental stores, and we could still play a lot of games for cheap. Now the counterpart is digital, and maybe that's something else they could do in terms of those NSO perks. They've done those game trials. Yeah, maybe they start to push more stuff to that.
I was going to say they're probably going to have to offer more game trials to get people to buy an $80 game without trying.
You're not going to buy that sight unseen.
Yeah, it's going to be harder to do. I mean, it's stuff like the Treehouse does kind of help promote and get the actual gameplay out there so people can see it, but it still is not the same as being able to experience it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So one last note on this topic, which I thought was interesting. The Switch 2 upgrade games do all require a download. So it does not seem like there is really if you at Switch 2 launch or when, I guess it doesn't come out at launch. If you, when it comes out, buy Metroid Prime 4 Switch 2 and keep it sealed until the Switch 2 eShop goes down, you put it in your Switch 2, which is still working later, you will not be able to access the Switch 2 version of that game. Presumably, it would still run as the Switch 1 version, because I think that is still there. But basically, they are just including a download code for the upgrade.
I've heard conflicting stories on this.
There is conflicting information around.
I've seen emails from Nintendo stating both things.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see if that's a real deal or
it's
not.
It's unclear, I guess.
Yeah, I've heard the Nintendo say that the whole game is on the card, and then I've seen other people where they say it's just going to include a download code, like similar to like a DLC that we get.
As far as that goes, I mean, like, for part of me, right, like, I'm not clamoring to go out and rebuy Tears of the Kingdom just so I can have a Switch 2 box for it.
Yeah.
Like, I have no problem playing the Switch 1 version and then getting the free upgrade with NSO, right? Or even if you're like, okay, I just purchased it for $10. Like, I think I I don't think, and I know there would be people out there that like, oh, I got to have the Switch 2 box now. But so it doesn't really bother me in some ways, but then in other ways, I could see people doing exactly what you're talking about, Sam. Like, hey, I found this now. I'm going to get this, and that for certain, you can't actually access it if that's the case, and you're like, well, I just bought the Switch 2 version. And what does that do for value of those games if you are just keeping them and not using them? But then, it'll be interesting to see what that does.
And it's really just another iteration of the same problem with DLC. It's the DLC becomes unavailable because it was never on the disc.
Right. And I guess what's the value of that?
Of Fire Emblem Awakening today for the 3DS, you can't access the DLC.
No.
Not unless you already owned it before.
Right. So then if you sell that copy, I mean, I guess I just mean like if you years from now, if you buy a Switch 2 version of one of these, and the case is that actually is just the Switch 1 cart with a code, you can go to GameStop and turn it in, but really all you're doing is turning in a Switch 1 game, so if you paid $80 for Breath of the Wild, and then you're like, maybe I want to go turn this in. I can't imagine they're going to take any more than they would for the Switch 1 version, right? Because like if you downloaded that code, that's that. It's just a Switch 1 version of the game going forward. So I don't know. I can kind of see, and I hope that Nintendo makes some clear statements on some of this stuff just so people can, number one, just have the information and just process it and decide.
I don't know how many. I think the interesting thing to me is they confirmed. I think ARMS is supposed to get an update.
Yeah.
Which I'm curious because a lot of these they have bundled with like added content.
ARMS might just be a graphic,
but because that was listed as a free. I've kind of secretly been wondering whether or not the ones that are getting free updates is just because there's some they have to run or they won't run kind of a thing. Like maybe those are some that had issues like, okay, ARMS isn't going to work with the new Joy-Con or something unless we update it. And so here you go, like just stuff like that. I'm kind of wondering secretly if they're like, hey, you get an update to these games. They're not really for performance. We're not going to tell you that. They're really not for performance. It's just because otherwise they won't actually run. But then I saw like, Zelda, Link's Awakening and Zelda, what's the one we just got? Echoes of Wisdom are supposed to also be free update versions. So, and they could go for a little bit of an update.
That was one people were scratching their heads about how the screen got blurry transitioning between areas.
Yeah, and so maybe that might help with those things, presumably. But yeah, I guess we'll really wait and see. They just kind of listed those and didn't really go into any kind of details. But it doesn't look like they're going to get like significant updates. Maybe just to help with performance or to make them runnable. Who knows?
Well, I guess we'll find out when we get it in our hands, I suppose, if we can afford it.
If we can find it.
Yeah, or find it, which might be even harder.
I don't know. We might be able to find them because if nobody buys them, we might be able to find them.
People could say all they want.
But
people are going to
buy them. If retailers are afraid nobody's going to buy them, they won't order very many, and then they'll be hard to find.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. The other big piece of news, retro-wise, coming out of this is that GameCube games are coming to NSO. No extra tier of subscription required beyond the expansion pass that already gets you in 64. Day one, it's going to have Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, F-Zero GX, and Soul Calibur 2, kind of the more surprising pick out of those.
There's your Wind Waker HD. Port.
No, I think we'll still get it at some point because if you look at the ones that are coming later, we're going to get Super Mario Sunshine, which is also
technically have that
HD version on Switch.
Yeah, but it came after the HD version. I think that's the trick. You get people to buy the HD version, then you say, okay, for those of you who weren't going to buy that, here's Mario Sunshine for
It's true.
subscription. As well as Fire Emblem Path of So coming later, Super Mario Sunshine, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, which we'd mentioned before, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Super Mario Strikers, Chibi Robo, Luigi's Mansion, and Pokemon Coliseum. As my list pointed out, these games are expensive. This is actually the affordable way to play all this.
Yeah.
Once all that's added, at least. We don't know how long that'll take.
It's kind of funny because it says that they're available later. I don't know how much later it's going to be, but if you watch the Treehouse, when they went to the GameCube section of Treehouse, they already had Strikers on their Switch.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like...
That might be an indication that will be in the sooner side of things.
I was like, they're like, well, you actually won't get Strikers at launch. This is a title will be available later. It's like, well, then why do you have it in your NSO app right now?
Right. I mean, we did when they had first announced the 64 games. Some of those that said coming later didn't come to us for almost a year.
Yeah,
so
it took a while.
It did take a while. So I think it's just that we want to make sure that everybody feels like they've got value no matter when they jump in, and we got to maintain that value. So we're not going to give you everything you want at once, so you can play them and then get rid of it.
Trickle it out.
You got to trickle it out.
And really, there's not a whole lot. There's really not a whole lot of stuff on GameCube to trickle out. It was a pretty small library for Nintendo.
Yeah, that said, I mean, it's Nintendo first party stuff is all pretty good. All stuff I think people want to see. So,
I think that's what we're going to get because the list is pretty telling how much third party is on board with this. We got one game that had a Nintendo character in it, though.
Yeah,
right. I mean, I think we might still get some third party. It might need, I mean, we're not going to get the Skittles game, but like, I could see like I guess it just depends on licensing deals, but I could see like a Gauntlet.
Yeah, we've seen some stuff come to NSO before on the other platforms as well. Even stuff people thought. I thought GoldenEye was unlikely. I thought anything Rare was unlikely, but especially GoldenEye because James Bond adds a whole other layer of people who have to
complexity.
But regarding that, we did get a Community Couch question from Presto, I believe it was, on what games we wanted to see added. Let's see, I'll pull the exact question up here. What game do you most want added to GameCube Online? Do you think they'll add Metroid Prime 2? Of the first three Metroid Primes, which is your favorite? I think the Metroid Prime games are definitely coming.
Especially since we didn't really get remasters the second and third.
They already did the remaster of one. They've sold as many copies of it as they're going to sell, I think, and they've got Prime 4 coming out. It's got to be after Prime 4 because they would have announced them by now. Yeah, but I think it makes sense, and especially with. I think most of the big first-party GameCube Nintendo games are going to come because that's what people are there for, and Nintendo, it's up to them to do it. They don't have to go through anybody else.
I also don't think we're going to get remastered versions because I don't think the first game sold all that well.
I mean, it's critical darling, right? And the fans, the people who love it. Like, but I mean, Metroid, as we continue to see, Metroid just is not a top seller for them. No matter how much we all might want it to be, it's not. I mean, as far as I can't answer the question about his favorite or which of the favorite Prime games is your favorite. I have not played any of the Prime games. I have a problem with first person. So I just cannot do first person games. So
the first one is my favorite. The second one kind of gets lost in the weeds to me. There's too much side stuff going on. And then the third game was on the Wii and I only played a portion of it. So I'm kind of hoping we do get, all the GameCube games are graphically enhanced. So we'll at least get better versions of the original ports.
Right.
I've thought about picking up the remaster, but I never really have time to play it anyway. So
it's good.
But I mean, it's first person for me. It really is definitely against my preference.
As far as what I'd wish list, my biggest one right here, and I think this is a no-brainer, and I think we will see it eventually, but Four Sword Adventures. Just to be able, that is what I've been clamoring for ever since I did my single-player replay. I want to play that game multiplayer with people, and like doing that like an NSO night or whatever with a bunch of us, like that would be my dream. Is that game I want to play the multiplayer version of that. It just seems so fun. And I think we'll get it. And we got the original on the GBA. So we'll see. I'm thinking that's got to be there, right?
I do think that's one of the things that where this service shines is I think having that common pool of games to play with other people, especially online when you can't play locally, because locally usually you only need one copy. They do have a download play kind of thing as well. But having games like that are multiplayer, especially more than 2 players, party games, easy enough to get into.
Yep.
I think the Mario parties are probably some of the ones I've spent the most time on the N64 app, outside of Majora's Mask, because I actually played through all of Majora's Mask.
Well, and apparently very few of us have actually played when we talked about Mario Party, very few of us have played the GameCube Mario parties, it sounded like.
I'd say they're all coming at some point.
Yeah, at some point I'd imagine we'll get those, and I'd be happy to play those too.
3 on N64, I think, yeah. And you have the microphone. So even the microphone support
the microphone
is there.
Yeah.
I have to mention Odama, because there's a microphone on the Switch 2. There's a GameCube app on the Switch 2. It is time for people to discover Odama.
We need Wario World.
The secret origins of Nintendo. Ooh, Wario World's a good one.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
I didn't list that out. I probably want that even more than WarioWare.
Treasure has to exist on the GameCube app.
I hope, yeah. Wario World would be... I've always wanted to play Wario World. It's too expensive. GameCube games are too expensive.
Dan would want to make sure we list the custom Robo.
Yep.
Yeah, I've played... I actually rented Custom Robo, so I don't have it. That is one I definitely want. Like, I want to be able to play that game again.
What's the frog golf game, too? I feel like... King. Yes, Ribbit King. So let's throw that one in there too.
That's a Namco published game,
so it's possible.
Namco's already got Soul Calibur on there,
so and that would be another good.
Very buddy with Nintendo.
Does Capcom do NSO very well?
Sometimes when it's stuff they don't care about.
Because I'm sure they don't care about Gotcha Force because it never did.
There you go, Gotcha Force. We got to get that on there.
Joe, I think, would be a great one to add as well.
Yep.
It's also a very dormant franchise. They put him in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, but they haven't done anything with Beautiful Joe since. Beautiful Joe 1 and 2.
I mean, if I'm just dreaming, I'd love to see the X-Men Legends games. I don't see that happening. That would just be
that's a bigger hurdle.
That's a huge hurdle, but it would be great if I'm dreaming.
I think if we get those, I think you would maybe more likely see something like a collection,
which I'd also
X-Men
be okay
Legends,
with. Just being able to play them multiplayer online.
Ultimate Alliance 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Coming to like all platforms.
And then they would give us Ultimate Alliance 4.
Yeah.
There we go. I'd be all about that.
In 3,
yeah, 3 wasn't as good as 2.
I mean, if I'm being honest, I feel like the Ultimate Alliance games, those have the first one was okay, it was pretty good. The second one was okay. The third one, it had some moments, but it wasn't the same.
And I always liked Legends better. They kind of scaled back the RPG aspect.
Yep, it's more beat 'em up
to where it really feels kind of just like an arcade game.
Yep.
Which is fun, but like it just
I agree.
it feels like the scope got smaller.
Yeah,
instead of bigger.
Oh, they would be competing with the new Marvel arcade game though that's coming out.
Well, I mean, that's the thing though. What Ultimate Alliance should be, Ultimate Alliance should literally be like Diablo with superheroes.
It should, yeah.
But they don't want to make it that big.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we're talking, there's no reason they couldn't put Twilight Princess on here too, the GameCube version. And so
I've never played the GameCube version, so maybe
I haven't either, actually.
With the mirrored map.
Only played the Wii
and
then
my least favorite Zelda
the
game,
HD.
though. I cannot make it past the beginning of the game. It takes too long to get started.
You don't like herding goats?
Herding goats and catching a fish for the cat.
It does. There are some great moments in that game, and it actually has some nice dungeons. But yeah, that beginning of the game is kind of a slog.
I feel like the good dungeons are late in the game too.
Yeah. Yep. So.
All right. Do we want to hit this community couch up?
Yeah. Well, quick other since I got through some of my other wish list of GameCube games, but because we were talking about it earlier, and we have seen some not released in North America games come to NSO before, like Hebereke and Starfy on the other
lots
apps.
of Famicom games.
Dokapon, Joy Mech Fight. That's a great one too. Dokapon the World, since we were talking about Dokapon, as I always do. The last actual new Dokapon game. Well, no, there was one on Switch, but it's like a crossover of something else. Anyway, Dokapon the World. Even with a lot of text, I think you could fumble your way through it. Another that is very accessible if you don't speak the language is the Kurokurokurin sequel, which I don't think even has any text. So no. I think that would be a great one to see come over.
Yeah. Well, we do have a big community couch here.
Got a lot of
that's true.
Yeah,
I just copied everything, so some of this may be, responses to other people. I did address Presto's question already, but I think most of it is just comments.
That's fine. We can read them,
not questions, so we don't have to all answer them. I'll get started with Drex 1981's comment. When I first saw the announcement trailer in January, I immediately thought to myself, this looks like what a Switch Pro is going to be. However, I was curious and looking forward to the Direct. After seeing it, this doesn't feel like a new console to me. It basically feels like the Switch Pro. For $499 and $80 per game, I'm going to wait or just buy a Steam Deck.
I mean, I get that.
So yeah, we've already got our first comment where the price is definitely a sticking point for some people.
And I don't blame anybody who feels that way.
No, I mean, that's real. You got to pay for things.
Yep.
Sometimes you just don't have the budget for it, don't have the room for it, want to buy something else instead.
Yep.
Eric Plunk, he gives us a comment. He says, I want to see a TV dinner style tray to use the mouse function with interchangeable tray tops. Bonus points if they have one that looks like a SNES mouse pad. So basically he wants a square gray plastic with a grid on it.
Well, I would be, I was thinking about this, and I think it would be awesome to have some with 80s style versions of Legend of Zelda or Super Mario Brothers, that 80s style stuff that they were putting out back then.
That would be cool.
That would be awesome. I'm with them. Let's do it. Double D said, for me, this is exactly what I wanted for the next Nintendo console. This Direct was a complete 180 from the previous one, where the only thing that really got me hyped was Metroid Prime 4. I'm 100% on board with being an early adopter for this, whereas I wasn't when the original Switch was announced. They're truly making a version of the Switch that I always wanted. Not only that, but they also announced games that I'm excited for, which seals the deal that it's going to be a day one purchase. I didn't expect it, but the game I am most excited for is DK Bonanza. Yeah, him and Dan both. Also, with my kids getting older and moving out, I love the integrated video chat and screen sharing options. I still won't get the higher tier of NSO, though, so I'll just keep playing GameCube games on my GameCube, but I love that they added it.
Nice. Yeah, the next one is just a comment to that comment there that SNES's Live says DK looks great for sure, which it does. The game looks amazing.
Yep.
At Double D says...
Oh, I think it's the same thing again.
Oh, that is the same. Yep,
it just got repeated.
Got double posted, and I double copied it. TX Trey says, my kids are still younger, but my third thought about that chat stuff was that I could do it with them when they move out or go to college. I still have probably one more Nintendo console release before that happens, so hopefully it carries forward.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that chat thing was something that either people were like, okay, I don't really care about this because I don't have any use for it, or was, hey, that actually looks kind of cool. You know, it seemed like there was a lot of either you were really high on it or really low on it.
Yeah, to me, almost the better thing is that essentially we finally have like a party system.
Yeah,
where you can join a group and
go
from one game to another game without dropping.
Yep,
that's also I think what everyone's been asking for. But I think anybody that thought Nintendo wasn't going to Nintendo-fy their voice chat,
right?
Was I will say it's pretty obvious too when they were showing it during the Treehouse Live that like the screen share is very choppy. It does not look good.
Well, and they didn't really try to hide that at all during the actual direct, so you could tell in the direct. So I was like, well, okay, that's that, and that's fine. Like as long as it's not, it didn't seem like it was impacting the game itself. That people were playing, so at least to me,
for it to actually be that good, like you just have to have insanely good internet,
right?
Yeah,
yep.
Chris HL94 is asking us who's getting the GameCube Switch controller, the NSO controller.
Are you guys getting it?
I think I replied to that later that I have an adapter and I expect it to still work with the Switch.
And I think we did get confirmation that it will. Yeah. Yep. So I will forego having a C button and a home button. I mean, if I can find one down the road or get a used one, or like, would it be nice to have one that I could exit to the home menu and it's wireless and, you know, everything else for some of that stuff? Yes. But also, I just love my clicky GameCube in all its glory controller.
Well, it may be a limited time. I mean, Smash Bros. Is inevitable, and GameCube controllers releasing alongside Smash Bros. Is inevitable.
Yeah.
There will probably be some iteration of that as well.
Switch to GameCube adapter coming soon.
Yeah. Right, we'll sell it to you for
just
again
the wired version.
Again.
Well, realistic. I don't know if Nintendo thinks about this, but it is an issue with tournaments when people actually use Bluetooth. There are people who prefer Pro controllers for Smash. They're kind of weirdos, but there is like some tech you can do with a Pro controller you can't do with a GameCube controller, depending how you mount the buttons. And tournament organizers hate them though, because the Bluetooth starts pairing to random consoles and messes everything up. So when everybody has a wired controller, everything's a lot easier.
For sure. Yeah, this controller is priced at $70, I believe, which is a good $20 higher than any ones they've released yet.
Yeah. It's pretty much a Pro controller.
I plan on getting one if I can find one, but just because I have all the others.
This softens the sticker shock on the system itself a lot for me, is the fact that I don't intend to buy any controllers.
Yeah.
Pro controllers
I'm not either to start.
I'll probably make do with the Joy-Con in the grip as much as I can, because there does seem to be a couple games that seem to suggest using just dual Joy-Con, like Prime, so that you can go to the mouse mode and things.
The mouse,
so
yeah.
I wonder if I'll be using those more. I welcome it. I mean, I thought Odyssey was great with 2 Joy-Con. It was designed for that. Mm-hmm. It's interesting they're kind of going back to that, because I feel like every Switch game I've played in the last 5 years felt like it was made for a Pro controller.
For Pro controller, yeah.
Yep.
But these Joy-Con are bigger too, which might actually be a little more comfortable. So yeah, it might work well.
Somber says that he's going to keep his, he's not going to get the new GameCube controller unless it stops working. And he said that Nintendo told him to keep his GameCube controllers many years ago, so he did.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Good man. Let's see here. We already did Prestos. Somber said he'd like to see, and one we didn't talk about, could we see Double Dash? I could absolutely see Double Dash
100%.
Appearing on the.
I don't think that's really competing with World.
I don't think so either. And I think that as many people as I feel like Double Dash is one of those games that I feel like people enjoyed when they were playing it, and then it kind of became, it's not as good as other ones. It's not as good as, it wasn't as good as straight up Mario Kart 64. And then it's kind of now I feel like had a little resurgence. People enough times past I kind of really liked how you could change characters and get different power-ups based on who you had in the cart with you. And, so it's kind of gone back. And I've always thought that I really liked a lot of the courses in Double Dash. And I thought that the 2 racers in your cart were actually kind of a fun kind of
it was a good
way to kind of mix things up.
It was a good way to mix things up, and you could choose whether you wanted to be in separate carts or if you wanted to share the same cart. And I definitely think that it has a place on the NSO app for sure. There will definitely be people that want to play it.
Yep.
Put people in the same cart in Mario Kart, and everybody loves it. You put people in the same cart in Mario Party, everybody loses.
Everyone hates it. They want to burn the place down.
That's right.
The very last comment is Dan's, and he wants Gotcha Force, which we already said.
That's right. He just wants to beat us all in the game.
I want Gotcha Force. I've never played Gotcha Force.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it either. I've watched
him play it. You know what gives me confidence is that I don't think Capcom cares about Gotcha Force.
I don't either.
Which is good.
They might not remember that it exists.
That's why Breath of Fire is on the Super Nintendo app.
They might have forgot that
they care
existed,
about Street Fighter.
I was going to say, somebody might need to remind them that they have the game.
Yeah. In order
so they
to
can
put it on
release
the
it.
NSO. They're like, oh, we made that game?
I mean, they're going to have to come up with it sooner. They've released practically their entire back catalog at this point. So they're going to come across it eventually go, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we even got
what else can
Dragon's
we release?
Dogma released again.
Right.
Hey, they had a sequel to that. They have some stuff out there. They have Breath of Fire on the Super Nintendo app. They have the Mega Man World series, the Game Boy ones, but not the NES ones, because that's a collection that's for sale. They have Gargoyle Quest on there, or just
I think so.
The NES one.
No, they have Gargoyle.
Gargoyle Quest is on the Game Boy as well. So
it could happen.
There's Capcom is willing to play ball. It really just comes down to whether or not they have their own plans for it, which for Gotcha Force I don't think they do.
Nope.
Right. Well, maybe they could even, put it on there and kind of gauge how much interest there is in it, and then it maybe could lead to something else. Who knows?
Dan will buy all the copies.
All of them. I think
every single digital copy he can,
which is probably like the next closest thing to it, from what I can tell.
Yeah,
it's probably something like Custom Robo.
Yeah,
which Dan is also for. So maybe we'll get both. I mean, he got Donkey Kong. No one expected Donkey Kong to be there, and that's what he got.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get some more. Maybe we'll get some of the GameCube Donkey King Kong
maybe we'll
stuff.
Get Kirby's Air Ride for the GameCube since we're getting the sequel.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another one that, and I'm really looking forward to F-Zero GX as well. That's another one I completely missed the ball on F-Zero. I didn't play an F-Zero game until F-Zero X on the NSO app.
I mean, there's some Kirby stuff on GameCube that people have fondness for, right?
I think that's the only one, isn't it?
Is it? Why was I thinking there's still something else?
I think that's the only Kirby game on GameCube is Air Ride.
Huh.
Yeah, there's no like main.
Yeah.
All right, I apologize. I apologize directly to Flightsy for that.
Yeah, he's like, hey, you gotta learn your GameCube games here.
That's right. I mixed up my GameCube with something else.
We went all out.
We really need the insanely valuable game you can't get anywhere else. Pokemon Box.
Yeah, because we need another way to store Pokemon on our Switch.
Yes.
We're gonna get
what if they actually added Pokemon to the Game Boy app, and then also added Pokemon Box to the GameCube one,
and then you can move your Game Boy Pokemon to Coliseum,
and then for $80 you can download a game that gets them out of there into Pokemon Home.
Yeah. Pokemon Bus.
Let you move your moving truck.
It'll let you move your Pokemon from box to home. It'd be a Pokemon unpacking.
That's right.
You put your box in the home and then you unpack it.
But you got to make sure they fit where you put them.
That's right. They make a whole mini game out of it.
That's right. Oh man. Okay, we're going off the rails now.
I think we're getting tired.
Yeah. Well, this was a good time. Always is. Thank you for listening to the RetroLogic podcast. We are proudly part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you like what you hear, you can check us out at Blue Sky at retrologicgames.bsky.social. You are also welcome to jump into our friendly and 100% non-toxic Discord community. Link to that is in the bio, and you can find everything at our website, retrologic.games. Until next time, have a good whatever time of day it is when you're listening to this.
Bye.
Bye now.